Have you ever really stopped to think about what it takes to just move? To pick up your coffee, walk across the room, or even just nod your head? It feels so automatic, right? But underneath it all, there's this incredible biological symphony playing out. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain. So, let's dive right into the big question, the mystery we're going to unravel together. How does a simple intention, just a thought in your brain, actually turn into a physical, coordinated action? How does that even work? All right, first things first, we got to get our terms straight, because as it turns out, in biology, there's a really important difference between just moving and actually going somewhere. And that brings us to our first key term, locomotion. This isn't just any old movement. It's the specific kind of voluntary action that literally gets you from point A to point B. We're talking about walking, running, swimming, the big stuff. So here's the easiest way to think about it. Moving your jaw to talk, that's a movement. But actually walking across the room to talk to someone, that's locomotion. So remember this, all locomotion is movement, but not all movement is locomotion. Simple as that. So what's actually powering all this action? Well, the answer is our muscles. These things are amazing. They make up a staggering 40 to 50% of an adult's body weight. They are the engines that drive literally everything we do. And we've got three main types. There's visceral muscle, that's the smooth stuff that handles all the involuntary jobs inside our organs. Then there's cardiac muscle, which is that unique, tireless muscle that keeps our heart beating. But for our story today, we're zeroing in on skeletal muscle, the kind you control, the striped kind that attaches to our bones and lets us actually move around. Okay, so how does a skeletal muscle actually do its thing? How does it contract? To really get it, we need to zoom in, and I mean way, way in. We're going to take a journey from the muscle you can see with your own eyes all the way down to the microscopic level where the real magic happens. So check this out. Every whole muscle is basically a bundle of smaller bundles. Those are called fascicles. And inside each of those are the muscle fibers, which are actually just single, really long cells. But we can go even smaller, to the myofibrils inside those cells. And that's where we find what we're looking for, the sarcomere. This is it. This is the spot, the sarcomere. This little guy is the fundamental unit of contraction. It's the tiny engine inside the bigger engine, and its power comes from two key protein filaments, a thin one called actin and a thick one called myosin. The whole mechanism is beautifully explained by something called the sliding filament theory. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Just like our source material says, it's all about those thin actin filaments sliding over the thick myosin filaments. But how? It all happens in this super fast 5-step dance called the cross-bridge cycle. Step 1, a signal from a nerve arrives. Step 2, that signal makes calcium ions flood the area. You can think of calcium as the key that unlocks the actin filament. Step 3, once it's unlocked, the myosin heads can reach out and grab on, forming a cross-bridge. 4, the myosin head then pulls the actin inward. That's the slide that makes the muscle shorter. And finally, step 5, an energy molecule, good old ATP, comes in and makes the myosin let go, so it can reset and pull again. This happens over and over incredibly fast to create one smooth muscle contraction. You ever wonder what that burn is when you're working out hard? Well, that's muscle fatigue. When your muscles are firing over and over again, they can start to run low on oxygen, which leads to a buildup of lactic acid. That feeling is literally your microscopic engines being pushed to their limit. Okay, we just went super, super small. Now let's zoom all the way back out, because all this muscle pulling and contracting would be totally useless if there wasn't something to pull against. And that's where our skeleton comes in. It's the framework for all this action. 206. That's it. That's the number of bones that make up the adult human skeleton. A pretty simple number for an incredibly complex and absolutely vital system. And this framework isn't just one big piece. It's organized into two main parts. You've got the axial skeleton, which is our central core, think skull, spine, and ribs. And then you have the appendicular skeleton, which is all the other stuff, our arms, our legs, and the parts that connect them to that core. But hold on, bones are rigid. So how do we get all that fluid movement? The answer is our joints. These are the crucial points where bones meet, and they act like fulcrums or pivot points that let the force from our muscles actually create motion. And not all joints are created equal. You have fibrous joints, like in your skull, that don't move at all. Then there are cartilaginous joints, like between your vertebrae, that allow for a little bit of movement. But the real stars of the show, especially for locomotion, are the synovial joints, your knee, your shoulder, the ones that give us a huge range of motion. This whole system, the muscles, the bones, the joints, it's an amazing piece of natural engineering. But, like any complex machine, it can run into some problems. Our source material points out a few common issues. There's arthritis, which is that painful inflammation right in those critical joints. There's osteoporosis, which weakens the bones themselves and makes them more likely to break. And there are things like muscular dystrophy, a genetic disorder that causes the very skeletal muscles that power us to break down over time. So there you have it, from a simple thought firing a neuron to a flood of calcium, to millions of tiny protein heads playing a microscopic game of tug-of-war, all the way to a bone pivoting on a joint. That is the incredible, hidden story of how you move. So now that you've seen what's going on behind the scenes, my question for you is, what simple movement will you appreciate just a little bit more today?